Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you live to talk about my fall 2017 anime watch list. This is going to be a video talking about everything that I'm trying to keep caught up with, watching every day of the week in the fall 2017 season that I may or may not be covering in reviews. There are some things that I am covering. If you've been subscribed to my channel, you can plainly see what shows I've been doing videos about. There's a whole host of shows, though, that I'm either given to writing up written reviews over on my Facebook account, or I'm just watching passively and don't really feel compelled to review one way or the other, whether in video or written format. And I thought this would be an interesting video during Wednesday of the week, which is my day where I have downtime. There's no new anime that I watch on Wednesdays. It's the day that I usually collectively watch anything I missed over the past week, try to catch up with it all, and I figured it would be an interesting talking point to point out all the shows that I happen to be watching that I'm not, covering in video review format, that kind of thing. Any of these particular shows, you can always feel free to engage me about in the comments below, or request that I maybe do a follow-up video talking a little more in depth about them. It depends very much on the show, how much I feel is worthy discussing about them, because most of these are passive watches where I just am not given to being compelled to talk about them. I watch them, I enjoy them, but I'm not necessarily given to feeling any emotional impact or any speculatory line of thinking as to where the story might go and such like that. Things that I feel are worthy talking points. And when it comes to that, I'm not going to bother wasting my time or your time recapping episodes. If all I have to say is a recap of things that happened one after the other in a given episode of a given anime series, what's the point of talking about it as far as I'm concerned? I want to talk about the emotional impact, what I thought about it, what I was feeling at the time, and again, if I have any theories or speculations as to where a story might go and character dynamics, how characters might come together or bound off each other, those are things that I feel are worthy of discussion. And if I don't find I'm compelled to talk about any of those things, I'm just going to watch it and enjoy it passively. And then there are also, again, occasions where I might want to talk about a show, but I don't feel like doing a video, so I do a little mini, write-up review with screen caps over on my Facebook account. You can feel free to friend me over there at any time if you so desire, if you're cool with that, and we can commune back and forth about anime that I don't happen to be covering in video format. But I, talk about everything else as well. Live action shows, just random posts, comedic stuff, and whatever like that. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into my watch list for every day of the week and see if any of these shows are shows you happen to be interested in, you happen to be following as well, and we'll see. So starting us out with Sundays out of the week, I'm watching 3 anime shows. The first is Imouto Sai Ireba Ii, which I hope I didn't butcher that title. It's the sort of absurdist comedy show about a group of mangakas, writers, and the main character is obsessed with little sisters to the point where every idea he concocts involves some sort of sick, twisted, incestuous thing where a brother is obsessed with a sister or vice versa. And but while it has a lot of, absurdist humor and such like that, I really only gravitated toward this show because at the time there was nothing else on Sundays that I was watching, and I figured it would give me something anime related to watch. And eventually I found I was really gravitating toward is the fact that, again, they're all mangakas, they're all aspiring writers. One of the characters actually has his project being translated into an anime, and the main character, there's a little bit of an adversarial thing going on there because, he is surrounded by these other characters who he feels write so much better than him. There's one girl who he's moved by her works to tears. Feels like the emotive process of her writing is so impactful, and it depresses him that he can't be on that level. He feels like his work is never going to be on that level. He's never going to be able to achieve the same sort of emotive quality, and he can't tell her because he's sort of her senpai and everything like that, and there's jealousy there and conflictual dynamics. There's another girl who he knows from school who is also an aspiring writer. She kind of has a burgeoning friendship with the other girl, and it's an interesting show. The comedy, the sick, twisted comedy notwithstanding, sometimes it gets me to laugh, but mostly it's the heartening drama that is unfolding with the main characters and their writing, and the main character's frustrations wanting to be a writer and be a successful mangaka and all this stuff. That really drew me in. So that is the first show I watch on Sundays. I recently picked up season 2 of Three Gatsu no Lion. I was really conflicted about whether or not I was going to pick this show up. I watched the entirety of the first season, and I had been told going into it that it was going to be very emotionally rocking and investing and things like that. And I didn't find it to be, personally. I found it to be a rather passive watch. And I was just watching a random anime episode the other day, as of the time of this recording, where I thought I heard the voice actor, the seiyuu, for the main character in Three Gatsu no Lion, just, voicing a background character in this, whatever the anime was. And I suddenly had this groundswell of emotions, thinking, I kind of, now that I know season 2 is picked up, and it's 2 episodes in, as of where I picked it up with, I suddenly had this strong desire, this urge to go and pick it up again and see where the story goes, that kind of thing. It was a show I was watching during a tumultuous time where I was sick. I was laid out with a staph infection for over a year in 2016. And so this was one of the shows I watched at one point and found, I guess I took more comfort in it than I thought, watching it passively every week. The dynamic between the main character and the 3 sisters in the show and everything like that. And it's all about the game of shogi, and I'm not really interested in that aspect of it too much. But I didn't expect that I would want to pick it up again with the 2nd season, and I surprised myself to find I actually had a desire to, after all. So rounding us off on Sundays is the Anime-Gataris, I think is how it's pronounced. As I understand it, this was originally a 3-episode short subject interstitial that was featured in a particular Japanese theater chain, and they developed it into a full-on anime. It's about an anime club in a school. The main girl, the main character, is a very much novice about all things anime, and she is overheard by the rich bitch in the class at one point talking about a loose interest in anime, and she's an anime fanatic. And it's all about her burgeoning the idea of their reopening an anime club in their school. And in the 3rd episode, they're very much in danger of losing the club because of the class president or whatever it is. They want to clamp down on it. They don't find it to be worthy of being open, and that there will be much mounting out of it. Researching anime and discussing it and all this kind of stuff, club activities. And there's this sort of nerdy character who's very, he wears the glasses, he's got the spiky hair, he wears a cloak, and he's always talking about all this magic and stuff like that, and all these spells. And he kind of reminded me of the character from Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors, where he's, that kid was like a Dungeons and Dragons master, and he thought of himself as the wizard master in his dreams. And this guy is kind of like that, but in reality, although without any of the mystical magical abilities. But I will say there is a talking cat. A cat that was locked up in the closet in the anime club room. And the main girl has these dreams, these fantasies of an anime she thinks she remembers from childhood. And she's trying to pinpoint what this anime was while having all these other characters, a couple of guys, a couple of girls. One is a light novel fan and is always, talking about the origin materials for adapted anime being from light novels. And so she's in a groundswell. She's in a tornado. She's in the center of all of this, while also trying to pinpoint what this anime, what these dreams are, what they're hearkening back to. And the talking cat makes me suspect that maybe it's kind of like The Last Starfighter, if you've ever seen that film, where the guy, a teenager thinking about going to college, he's a video game player, he plays this arcade game, where it's space battles and a spaceship against aliens and everything like that, kind of Star Wars-esque. And he beats the Atari game or the whatever you want to call it, the video game, it's in a cabinet, like what you would see at an arcade. He beats the game with the highest score, and then suddenly he is whisked off into space to become a real warrior, a real fighter in the legit battle. And I don't half wonder if that's what's happening in this show, that the main character who is the novice, the dreams and the fantasies she's having from childhood might be a real thing out there somewhere, and the talking cat is sort of her through line to that as she evolves and becomes more familiar with, heroic character tropes in animes. Maybe she'll have to be emboldened and become a warrior in some fight, some interstellar battle. I don't know. That's just my speculation. But those are my 3 shows for Sunday. Again, that's Imouto, Ireba Ii, the crazy sister-obsessed character show, Three Gatsu no Lion Season 2, and Anime-Gataris. On Mondays, I'm watching 2 shows. That is Children of the Whales and Elegant Yokai Apartment Life. I've been watching Elegant Yokai Apartment Life since it began, and it's a very passive show, just really enjoyable. I like the character dynamics and the calm reservedness of it, you know, that kind of thing. Even when things get a little tumultuous for the main character, it's still enjoyable to watch. You know, a lot of crazy stuff to do with spirits and yokai monsters and stuff like that. There have been a few sweet episodes, in fact, and surprising emotional episodes, one or two of which I've actually written up over on my Facebook account. And Children of the Whales is a brand new show. I find the world to be, you know, very intrinsically intriguing. I'm not sure where it's going to go exactly. It kind of reminded me of Susume no Gargantia. You know, it's like this whole planet-wide sand ocean or something like that, and a whole group of people, community of people, live on the back of what they call a mud whale, and they find this girl who has no emotions on this random island they encounter, and it turns out there is a being that, you know, siphons emotions out of human beings. And when she's, you know, parted from that creature, whatever it is, for a long time, her emotions are starting to come back. And as of the last episode, I haven't watched the actual latest episode that aired. I think it's episode 3 or 4. But the last episode I watched, they had just come under the attack of these Harley Quinn masked sort of soldiers or something like that have been following them, air quotes. And I don't know what's up with that. So Mondays, again, Elegant Yokai Apartment Life and Children of the Whales are two shows I'm watching. On Tuesday, I'm also watching two shows. These are two that I'm actually covering in reviews, so I don't really need to say much about them. Black Clover TV, as well as Shokugeki no Soma San no Sara, the third plate. Again, I'm covering those in reviews every week. That's kind of loosely what prompted my doing this video, is because I really don't get much interaction in the comments on those videos. I don't know why that is. I guess most people haven't stuck along with Shokugeki no Soma or enjoy it as much as I do and whatever like that. And I figured I'd put this video out there to talk about all the shows I'm not covering, to maybe hopefully engage you guys a little more in the comments, you know, that kind of thing. So that is my Tuesdays, Black Clover TV and Shokugeki no Soma San no Sara, or the third plate. Wednesday is my free day. It's you know, there's no new anime that I watch. There are some live action shows I've been watching that I've both been covering and not covering. Star Trek Discovery, The Orville, Lethal Weapon every week, Riverdale episodes, Star Wars Rebels. This is usually the day that sometimes I'll pick up with those episodes if I've, you know, managed to catch up with everything anime related. So Wednesday's my day off. That's why I'm doing this video on a Wednesday, you know. So getting us on to Thursday, I'm watching, let's see, 1, 2, 3 shows. Ousama Game, the animation, which for the moment I have been reviewing every episode. I've just been doing reactions, you know, foul language laden reactions, because the show is insane. It's not good. It's bad insane, but it's fun to rant and rave about insane. I'm also watching Just Because, which I have thus far been doing reviews about. I find it to be a really heartwarming, somewhat passive watch. There isn't a whole hell of a lot that usually goes on in a given episode, but it's the character dynamics in there, somewhat cliched, arguably, but that has been the strongest desire I've had. I've been really curious about the character dynamics going on in that show, and enough so that I've been compelled to, you know, discuss it in reviews. And then rounding out Thursdays, I picked up with this anime called Inuyashiki. And this was a recommendation from a friend of mine, and I find it interesting. I don't know how invested in I actually am. The main titular character, Inuyashiki, is this octogenarian. He is an old guy, kind of on his last legs. He finds out whether cancer or something like that, I don't remember. He only has so long to live, like maybe a couple of months or something like that. And, you know, he feels like his family doesn't care about him, such like that. And he witnesses an event that seems to be interstellar, something alien or something like that, maybe. And it turns out he is transformed into like an android with super abilities and all this kind of stuff. Similarly so, there's another, you know, character involved in the show who had a similar transmogrification. And this guy is a sadistic psychopath. He goes into a random house, and one by one, he murders brutally the family. He walks in, he shoots the mother who's cooking out in the oven. He goes upstairs and finds the father with the son in the bathtub, kills the father. The father, you know, falls down on top of the son, who then drowns. It's disgusting and disturbing. And, you know, it makes this guy feel vibrant and alive because he feels one step removed from his humanity. And so it's kind of enabling, and enacting the titular character Inuyashiki seemingly into the hero that will go after this villain. And so it's somewhat intriguing along those lines. Again, I'm still reserved, and I don't know how invested in it I am necessarily for a long-term sticking with it, but it's an intriguing show in any case. So again, Thursdays, that's Ousama Game, the animation, or King's Game, the animation, Just Because, and Inuyashiki. Now, Friday and Saturday are my busiest days of the week, each consisting of 5 shows. On Friday, I'm still watching Shoukoku no Altair, even though, I have done a couple of cursory episode reviews over on my Facebook account. I think I did a couple of videos early on into the show, and it's picked up. Now that it's reached its halfway point, it's picked up and gotten a little better. Still not really worthy doing video discussions about. I'm watching the new show Girls' Last Tour, which is a very passive watch. Again, other than the fact that in the latest episode they finally find someone else. It's 2 girls in the aftermath of a war, and like there's no life anywhere for hundreds of thousands of miles. I guess they're contained in a giant underground sort of city or something like that, a world underground, and they're ever rising upward and upward and trying to find food and water and just trying to, mull the hours away of their survival, hoping for something more. And they finally stumble onto this guy. There's like this whole crevice, a ravine that they can't get across. And he, he's like a demolitions expert or something, or finds, materials to blow up a building and create an impromptu bridge. And they spend some time with him for a while. He's been mapping the entire corridors and all the city streets and everything in this, whatever this layer is. And so it's a show that I don't really feel there's much to discuss that wouldn't be a straight out-and-out recap. But it is a very enjoyable show. It's an immersive show, and I like the passive quality of it. I like the 2 main characters. I'm also watching on Friday Net-Juu no Susume. This is one that I have been covering in reviews, so not really much that I have to delve into any further there. If you've been watching my reviews, if you've been watching the show, you know what it's about. I am watching and loving the ever-loving hell out of Garo Vanishing Line. I love this show. This show is spectacular, all kinds of badass, and it's one of those things where it's so conflictual to me, because this should be a show I'm covering every week. This should be a show I do reactions of every week with how much I love it. But I just don't find I have anything more to say that would be anything less than a recap. Like just telling you what happened again, and oh, that was cool, and I don't feel like there's much to really delve into. It's a really action-packed, intriguing show. I love the character designs. It reminds me of something classic like Cowboy Bebop, something like that, and it's just all kinds of badass. And then rounding out Fridays, I'm watching Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World, the new anime adaptation of that, which I find to be somewhat intriguing. It's episodic. Kino, I didn't know it was a female character. Has this talking bike and is on a journey traveling the world, and goes to these sort of city-states that are known as nations. They're all contained within walls, and each single one is very intriguing and interesting all its own. And there's usually an interesting twist or aspect to the episode that you don't necessarily see coming. And it's a very passive watch. It's much like Inuyashiki. I don't know how invested in it I actually am for the long haul. I just find it mildly interesting in the moment. So again, for Fridays, that's Shokugeki no Altair, Girls' Last Tour, Net-Juu no Susume, Garo Vanishing Line, and Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World that I'm watching. And to round out the week, on Saturdays, I'm watching ClassicaLoid Season 2, which is one that I'm covering in reviews. Love, 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 love ClassicaLoid. I cannot get enough of it. Can't get enough of talking about it. And I'm also watching, at least for the moment, Two Car, which is kind of, it's okay. It's not great. I'm very much intrigued by the sport, the racing sport and everything like that, but there's not a whole hell of a lot to say. There's too many main characters. And I don't know. I'm watching it for now, passively. I'm also watching Blend S, which I love. Sort of a cafe-laden show. I did a first, impressions video on that. I did one on Two Car as well. And I find the humor and the calmness of it, the subdued nature of it, to be funny. It's not quite as outlandish as, say, the sister-obsessed show on Sundays, but it has a similar completely screwing up all my words now that I'm rounding out the video. It has a similar sort of comedic tack along the lines of perverse humor to a point. You know, like it's a maid cafe, kind of a niche cafe where the main character is supposed to be very sadistic. You have a little sister character, you have a sort of tsundere character, and there are a couple of others that have not been hired onto the restaurant as yet, or at least one of them was actually just introduced. But it's all these different niche things in a sort of Akihabara, you know, area kind of thing. You go in there to be mistreated by girls and such like that, or treated like the you know, awestruck older brother and whatever like that. It's not as twisted as the Crazy Sister Obsessed show, as I said. I'm also watching Houseki no Kuni, which is a really intriguing new show about these crystalline beings in a, you know, not too distant future, or very distant future, or whatever you want to say. And these interstellar, you know, sort of beings from the moons above come down and hunt them. And it's all kinds of intriguing. I don't think any description of it is really going to do its service if you're not already watching it. And that's largely why, you know, it's a passive watch. I'm intrigued by the world, and I don't really know where it's going, so it really isn't barring any further discussion, at least from my point of view. And then a show that, you know, I ought to be reviewing with how much I am invested in it, The Ancient Magus Bride. I did a full write-up on the third episode, I think it was, to do with the dragon's lair and everything like that. If you're watching the show, I found it to be highly emotionally impactful and actually brought me to tears, this episode. And the entire affair, the main character, I think Chise is her name, you know, she's kind of bought by a mage who has a skull head. It's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast thing. And I don't know why, other than she comes from a humble background, a poor background, impoverished, and she's kind of being sold off probably because of her abilities, her innate abilities, which is very magical and mystical. And this guy, the main guy, Elias, wants to train her as his apprentice. And it's just a really mystical, magical world. And you know, at one point in the third episode or whatever it is, she's kidnapped by an old friend of his as like a joke and brought to this dragon's lair. And she assists the end times of this aged dragon and gets to frolic around with some dragon hatchlings and things like that. It's just a really beautiful, interesting show. And so that's pretty much what I'm watching every week. Rounding out Saturdays again, it's ClassicaLoid Season 2, 2-Car, Blend S, Houseki no Kuni, and The Ancient Magus Bride. And so I will list in the description below this entire list of things that I'm watching, as well as the live-action shows and Star Wars Rebels, in case you even want to engage me in any discussion, talking points on those shows. But yeah, for the strict benefit of putting out there everything that I'm trying to keep caught up with every week, everything that I'm tentatively watching, and could potentially be motivated to do a video discussing per requests from you guys and such like that. That's really why I wanted to do this video and showcase this entire list as I have written. You know, again, of things that I'm not actively covering in video reviews, and I may or may not be covering in written reviews, because I feel like all of these shows are worth watching, are worth, for the most part, investing in to a point, some more than others. And yeah, I'd love to hear any feedback you guys have. If you're watching any of these shows, if you're enjoying any of these shows, if you'd like to see me talking about them, you know, in like a follow-up video, or just sort of go back and forth in the comments, that kind of thing. What your impressions on them are, love or hate any of them, you know, anything goes in the comments below. As I always say, our POVs can certainly disagree, and if you have a distaste for any of these shows, I'd love to hear why, just as much as I'd love to hear why you might be loving them and head over heels for them. And it's always the topic of talk that is, you know, the chief aspect of doing this for me, communing with like-minded folks who love anime and other things. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I got to say on this fall 2017 anime coverage list, watch list, you know, such like that. And I hope to hear from you. Otherwise, in the interim, I'll see you when I see you. I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.